Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Coach Menachem Bernfeld on this beautiful Sunday night, March 3rd. Thank you for joining us. Tonight is Shir 178. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming on every week, and we have a bunch of amazing topics and speakers coming up. And thank you for telling people about it and sending the emails around and the WhatsApps. So we appreciate it. And tonight is, again, we've had Rob and Nochum on before to discuss this, but we're going to go a little bit deeper tonight on children and even adults on the spectrum. And hopefully tonight's talk will be very helpful for people now and hopefully down the future. If anybody wants to join the WhatsApp communities, you can just WhatsApp me at 732-314-1710. And I'll send you the link to the communities. I'll also send the community links in the emails and also in the Zoom chats. You can also go to menachembernfeld.com and sign up for the website. And he sends out all the emails, all the replays, and all the important information that's going on in the Coach Menachem world. So please join us. Again, for anybody who's watching this on YouTube later on, click on the like button and the subscribe button. So every time you upload a video to the Coach Menachem platform, you get to watch them, and hopefully we all grow together. Special thank you to all the advertising sponsors in Lakewood for here at the Lakewood Scoop, Ellie Nario, Farmtown Central, and Chayla Kaufman from JCN. We really appreciate promoting us. Again, if anybody's here the first time, every Sunday night at 9:30 on this Zoom ID, we have different important topics, different therapists, rabbanim, important people, and we really try to clarify and go through some important things that are happening. Next week, March 10th, we're going to have a deep discussion. Reb Dov Bernstein was supposed to be on this Sunday, but something happened. He pushed up to next week, and we still didn't confirm the topic, but he's very mystical, and hopefully it'll be something very interesting. So thank you for joining. And tonight we have the honor of having again Rob Bernstein together with Nochum, Monosov, and we'll get into their whole background and everything soon. First, we'll start with tonight's gematria. Tonight's share 178, and our CEO, CFO, and everything behind the share, the one who started the share, Bernard Fried, will give us the gematria, and Nochum will say if it's a good gematria, because he likes to hear if it's good or not. Let's go.
Shir number 178. Understand me, don't fix me, creating real change for children on the spectrum. In order to accomplish this feat, it has to be done in a clever way, which leads us up to tonight's gematria 178 is Am Chacham, a smart nation to do things in a clever way.
No, Nochum, on a 1 to 10, what do you give that?
Was that on the spot? I think that was very good.
Rob, he's good?
Perfect. I mean, more than good.
Okay.
I think he's too good for us, actually.
I have to agree with that. Okay, now we're going to turn over to the host, the world famous Coach Menachem Bernfeld. He's going to lay it on. He's going to lay out the map tonight. What we're trying to accomplish. What are we all doing here tonight? Coach Menachem Bernfeld.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone. Welcome to another Let's Get Real with Coach Menachem, and Baruch Hashem, we're doing tonight number 178. And we had with us Rob and Nochum. We did have them in the past, and we're very excited to continue the conversation. Like we always say, it's very hard to finish. To an hour and a half is not enough, and we probably won't have enough time tonight either. But we'll start. We'll start the conversation. Starting the conversation is important so that people out there that need it and they can reach out to those who can help them in Yetz Hashem. So to understand a little bit, many parents, the first child, second child, everything went well, and they went to school and behaved, and everything is amazing. And then for some reason, the next child is very frustrating. The child is struggling in school, struggling social skills, and they're trying to figure out what the child needs, and they're trying to do this, do that. The teacher tries this and that. He's in class, out of class, the principal. And the parents just have to go to work. They don't have time. And it takes a lot of time when you get called down to the school once and twice. And they ask themselves, why can't this child just figure it out, like everybody else? And they just hope one day things are gonna work out. Hopefully, he'll get older, he'll get to understand, but for some reason they don't. So talking about the spectrum, I'm saying there is a huge spectrum talking about from high functioning, low functioning. It's interesting which one is easier. Sometimes for parents, when it's low functioning, could be easier, even though you might think it's, there is a side to it that's easy because it's very clear. It's clear that the child needs extra help, and you have to figure out how to deal with the child. But when a child is high functioning in a regular class, a regular home, and everything is working out, for some reason there are small things that they can't figure out. Sometimes it's much harder. So it's something that to think about. Which one do you think is easier, high functioning, low functioning? I guess everybody would have a different answer for that. But till they get to the answer, until they get to the diagnosis, which a lot of times we don't want to hear, it's too hard to hear, until we figure out what's going on with the child, there's a lot of frustration. And we heard last time, for those who remember, for many, just being able to figure out that they have that, the diagnosis made them feel so much better, because they can go so many years trying to figure out why they're different, why things are not working out. They have a hard time just being around. But once they figure out, finally I can figure out where I am. Now, again, it's, a lot of people don't want to diagnose. They do. Which one is easier? Something to think about. And tonight we'll discuss it. But when you have a child that's all over the place, runs in the street, no matter what you do, so you start punishments and this and that. They don't eat, they don't sleep, they're crawling the walls, and you name it. And you're trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? Many times parents blame themselves that they have, the parenting is not good. Talk about it, the grandparents, they blame their kids, take care of this child, got to be a little stronger, put down your foot. And till they figure it out that this child needs something different, they will not respond to our regular chinuch, to our regular parenting. They don't respond the same way. And there's nothing wrong with you. You could have been could have had with the other kids, you had success, but with this one you don't. So it does take that being able to slow down and to understand, like we're going to discuss tonight, to understand the child. What's going on? What does he need? And tonight we have with us the big ones, Rob and Nochum. They work together, trying to help all of those who need. And we'll try to understand a little bit this child. And before we go, I just want to mention understanding the child. Understand Me, Don't Fix Me is not only for autistic children. I think it's for everyone. When you're trying to parent, many times we forget. We're constantly saying, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do this. First understand the child, and more important, let the child feel understood. The child should feel somebody is there for him. His parents understand him. He can talk. They can discuss things. When they're in a bad mood, when they throw tantrums. Regular kids throw tantrums, yeah. Not, they all need to be felt and understood. So, Mitzvah Hashem, we'll start the discussion, ask you questions, and let's see where it goes. Thank you.
Coach Menachem, for that beautiful opening. Let's get into it. The title tonight is Understand Me, Don't Fix Me, Creating Real Change for Children on the Spectrum. We're going to start off first with Nochum, who's going to go first. Nochum's a MS-ED BCBA. Nochum Monosov received his master's degree in Applied Behavior Analysis at the University of Cincinnati in 2019 and his BCBA certification in 2020. He also received a New York State Standard Teaching License in 2015. Since 2010, Nochum Monosov has provided educational behavioral therapy for children and adolescents in Lakewood, New Jersey. Nochum has started Real Change ABA Therapy to provide ABA therapy incorporating Rob's Bernstein's innovative approach. And Nochum will open it up first.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, Coach Menachem Rav Asher, for inviting us again on the program. The message that we get is that this is a topic that's dear to you. You're passionate about it. About helping these children, or be not just children, adults, and you really wanted to bring more awareness to this topic. So thank you for bringing us on. Now, last program we did, Rabasha, you came up with this beautiful title, Understanding the Misunderstood. And I think this title was a big inspiration for a lot of what we're doing, because we're sort of doing that, intuitively. We want to understand the kids, want to really help them, but sort of this title really opened up this idea that this is like maybe one of the central things that we need to do to help these people. We really just need to understand them. And as we're working more in the field, we're working together, talking to Rob, working more with kids, with families. I'm seeing more and more that just understanding the kid, just understanding his point of view, understanding how he views the world, how he understands things, is the best way to really, help them really change fundamentally and really grow. So, there's a story that happens with me recently, which is a big inspiration for this program. Lots of stories that come up, but this specific story was, I started working with a boy, and in a short period of time, this boy was really making a lot of progress. It started out, it seemed like, from the Rebbe, that he's just, Rebbe doesn't feel like he can do anything with him. He just doesn't respond to anything the Rebbe says. He's totally not cooperating. And then in a short period of time, we worked with him. I worked with him part myself, part there's a therapist that I was supervising that was working with him every day. And in a short period of time, the child was noticeably changing and improving. He's doing better with friends. His participation in class did make some progress. He's coming home happy. The mother's reporting that, he's just happy when he comes home. He's not so upset about school. And so we had a meeting, with the school, with the parents, with the teachers, with the principal. And during this meeting, the mother said something I think is very profound. She said, all the child needed was to be understood. And she felt that this, the therapist that's working with her kid every day, he really was able to understand the kid. And one of the things is the therapist himself actually went through similar challenges when he was growing up, and he discussed it. And he says, like, he really gets the kid. He sort of could like feel like he's in this kid's shoes, sitting in the classroom and, listening to how the teachers, the Rebbe's teaching, and it's just not connecting to how this child thinks, how this child's mind works, and being able to understand the kid's point of view and tune into that. That was already enough to just make this fundamental change, and really get the kid to really start growing and improving in a meaningful way. So, a little bit more details about this, just to be more descriptive. I'm going to change details, but we're going to say that this boy, his name is Shlomi. Shlomi's in 5th grade, and the Rebbe said that Shlomi, he's as if he's not in the class. He's sitting there, he's as if he's not in the class. And, he doesn't participate, he doesn't do anything he's supposed to do, he doesn't open his Sfarim, he doesn't listen to the Gemara, he doesn't take any tests. And the Rebbe started, trying to tell him to do things, and it's just like there's no response. So the Rebbe said, okay, this kid is not for me. I can't deal with this kind of kid. And so one of the things that I try to focus on, and one of the things I'm learning from Rob is that, let's figure out what is Shlomi, what gets him really excited, what gets Shlomi really going, right? I want to see, like, I'm gonna just sit down with Shlomi. I'll bring a bunch of games or things to talk about, and I want to see what's that thing that's gonna really get Shlomi, like, spark that, that aliveness, that excitement, like, this is really life, this is really meaningful. And using that, we can sort of figure out how we're going to help this kid. And I realized that Shlomi, I like to do woodworking, and I saw Shlomi, he loves things with building, loves things with woodworking. And I said, we're going to work on, making this little project, this wood project. We're going to make a little box, and there's a electronic lock on this box, and you swipe it with a card, open up the electronic lock, the cover opens up. And Shlomi was absolutely fascinated by this idea about this project. And, so one of the things, that I see is that, things that are visual, things that, he could tangibly build and put together is so much more meaningful. So he's sitting in a classroom, and the Rebbe's teaching Gemara, but there's not that much visual. There's not that much that he could really, hands-on incorporate. It's just, it's reading, it's words, it's translation, and it's just totally not connecting with him. So just having somebody that, took him out of class for, some time every day, spend time trying to teach him and make the learning something that he can really connect to, something he can really engage with. We're going to learn about things in the Parsha, about the Mishkan, building things for the Mishkan. We're going to let's figure out how we could actually build them. Let's talk about, what are the things that, that the Menorah is really made of. And then when it's real, when it's alive, that's something that he really connects to. Now, I'm going to have to really add something that you, Coach Menachem, said, that, right, why are we calling this title for children on the spectrum? Really, this should be for every child. Every child that's challenging, it's the same thing. We need to understand what this child is going through, how he learns, how he develops, and then we can figure out how to gear our education and our teaching to address what he needs. And, figuring out, maybe if for some kids, just reading they can't relate to, we have to find something that they could relate to, and then they'll start to really learn. Now, another point I wanted to mention is that sometimes when you're talking about understanding the child, maybe the child says that nobody understands me, and maybe we don't fully understand the child. So what does that mean, understand me? Well, at least our approach should be, we want to understand you. We're going to try to understand you. We're going to try our best. Maybe we won't, but at least that's what we're trying for. And at least the child's going to get that message that we're here to try to understand him, try to see what's going on. And if he senses that's our interest and that's our approach, instead of us deciding for him what he should be doing and what should be, unless if we tell him, oh yeah, we understand you, that's not understanding him. Understanding means we're open and we're ready to accept, what the child has to say, and we're gonna, respond to his feedback. So, and then one more point that you said, Coach Menachem, that's, very important, is that there's a lot of pressure, societal pressure, which sort of is interfering with this. This pressure, let's say, from the grandparents, different kinds of pressure in the family that, like, hey, how could the kid just be doing all this kind of stuff? You got to put a stop to it. Just put your foot down. Don't let him get away with it. And that makes it hard to, engage with the child, understand him for who he is, and help him, because we have to somehow disregard understanding him and just get him to do what he needs him to do. And that's really one of the big challenges that interfere with this process. And that's why I think that this is a really, really important topic and a really important discussion, to understand me and don't fix me. Don't just try to fix me and change me. And if we understand the child, then he will change and he will get fixed, but not because we're fixing him. He'll fix himself. Okay, thank you.
Okay, beautiful. Let's turn it over to Rob. I'm going to read his bio, and then we'll give it over to Rob over here. Robert J. Bernstein has developed a cognitive-based approach for more than 30 years, starting with the Haas Summer Program at Park Seville, New York. He's seen thousands of clients. He speaks internationally, runs webinars, and has a podcast, Uniquely Normal, a Rob Bernstein podcast. Rob serves on the board of the Westchester ARC. Rob Bernstein has a child and a brother on the autism spectrum, who are both highlighted among the 27 stories in his award-winning book, Uniquely Normal, Tapping the Reservoir of Normalcy to Treat Autism. His latest book, Uniquely Normal Manual, Using the Bernstein Cognitive Method for Autism. It's an honor to have Mr. Rob back with us. Rob, open it up for us.
Well, it's a real honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us again. A lot of wonderful information has already been said. I think, number one, what Nochum just said about being engaged, that's a key, and you can't emphasize that enough. And as we talk more, if you have a kid who's bored and not connected to school, well, so something wrong. Kids should be enjoying, kids should be liking school. Is that asking too much? They should be engaged, and that should be a primary, especially with kids who have learning problems. If these kids aren't engaged, they cut out. They can't wait till they're old enough to say, you know, bye, mom, bye, dad, I want to be on my own. And that's what happens in the community. They have to be engaged. They have to love what they're doing, love learning, love the Jewish life, and not feel that they're tortured. And why are they tortured? Because they're not understood. It comes back to that. I loved what both Coach Menachem started with, the idea that if it's good for some of these kids, it's good for everyone. I was observing a child in a classroom, and there was a circle, right? And this kid was right outside the circle. And afterwards, I went to the teacher. I said, you know, the two kids who are sitting, you know, in front of them could just reach back and grab one hand, and the other kid could reach back and grab the other hand. All of a sudden, the kid's in the circle, the kids included. Now, this is a kid who wouldn't mind, you know, holding hands. Some kids would mind. And the teacher said, oh, it's so simple. Thank you. You're making me a better teacher for everybody. So that's what we're talking about. Just good education, good teaching, good learning. This idea of being understood and not understood. Coach Menachem said something else that was, I thought, really important. The kids often get blamed. Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to be doing? So the kids often get blamed. And you know who else gets blamed? The parents. Why, you know, well, how come it's your fault? I've been in the schools for 30 years, and I know this firsthand, that the teachers in the school, the first thing to be blamed are the parents. The kid comes in, it's always the parents' fault, and the parents, like, they're dealing with 1,000 things. It's not the parents' fault. It's the responsibility of the teachers in the school to connect with the kid, to understand the kid. If you connect and understand the kid, all of a sudden there's, here, I'll give you an example off the top of my head. Like being understood, being connected. There was a behavior problem. This girl was just disconnected. I said, this girl needs a personal relationship with the teacher, something personal. Well, what does that mean? I thought about it, and I went to talk to the teacher. I said, you know, sometimes you bring things from your car, like during lunch or something, you take a break, take this kid with you. Take this kid with you and ask her to help you bring something in from your car. That connection was all the kid needed. The kid needed this special connection, and that's all the kid needed, because I understood what the kid needed. I understood who she was, what she needed. And it's the same thing with kids in college. They may need this personal connection. I had a kid, couldn't relate to anything, Shakespeare, anything. But if she knew the times of Shakespeare, she was introduced to the Elizabethan times, then she could, all of a sudden she connected to everything. It's understanding the kid, understanding what the kid needs in order to make this connection. So I wanted to give an example of kind of the work, or the cognitive work that that we do here. I'm getting something. And that is, some teachers, when they need to understand the kid, and look, I was trained like everybody else. How do you understand the kid's math, you know, ability? Okay, you give a kid a count to 10. All right, the kid could do it. Count to 20, the kid can't do it. Okay, now I know where the kid's level at. Now I understand the kid. You give him a test and you see, oh, what level he's at. Okay, now I understand the kid. And just with the math example, I've had kids coming in, they count to 100, they count to 120. From our point of view, a cognitive point of view, what's important with counting? Let's just take counting. The important thing with counting is the idea behind counting. Now, if I ask, and you could write in the chat, if I ask you, what is the idea behind counting. Now, I know you all know the idea behind counting, but if you have to learn it, and that's the point, some of these kids have to learn what other kids learn naturally. They don't have to be taught it. You didn't have to be taught the idea of counting. Now, if I asked you, what is the idea of counting? What would you say? And I see faces thinking, well, you're thinking because you were never taught it. You know, it doesn't come easy and natural to you. Like, what's the idea? I did this in India in front of 800 people. 2 people had an answer. One was totally off. So one person out of 800 actually had a response. What is the idea of counting? So I'm gonna just keep talking because I don't see any anything on the idea of counting to me, and this is important, is that 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is 1 more than 3, right? And 3 is 1 less than 4. If a kid doesn't understand that and play with this, I was going to say trust me, but I don't like that expression. Play with this idea. A lot of our kids do not understand when they're counting that, oh, 4 is 1 more than 3. They don't get it. So now we're teaching them something rote, right? The counting. And it's literally meaningless, right? Because they don't understand the idea behind it. It's meaningless. So fine, the teaching's meaningless, but something really, and I've been studying John Dewey, and it's real. I'm convinced something very harmful is happening. Because now the kid is learning. He's getting reinforced. He's getting rewarded. Oh, now you count to 20. Now you count to 30. So the kid is learning that this is the behavior that is good, that he's rewarded for. Meanwhile, he doesn't understand, in terms of counting, he doesn't understand it at all. It's totally meaningless. So now something about me, if I tell you something that's not good, or I don't like something, I'll always tell you what to do about it. Otherwise, why should I say that? So I'm going to give you, is it okay for me to share a secret, Coach Menachem? I don't want to share all my secrets, but okay, all right. All right, here, okay, I share, okay. All right, so this is what you do, all right? You play, you have fun with this. You have 4 pennies, right? And you have the kid count 4 pennies. He counted 100, 1, 2, 3, 4. How many pennies in my hand? You close your hand, 4 pennies. He got it 4. He gets it, 4 pennies, right? Then what you do, with the hand closed, and you show him, you take 1 penny away. Now how many do I have? Now, if the kid says, open your hand, because all he knows how to do is count, right? Then, well, I use it as a learning tool, so I don't open my hand. I go, all right, I have this challenge for this kid. You can do what you want. I don't care. But the kid says, open your hand. Now you know he doesn't have the concept of counting. Because if he had the concept of counting, you got 4, 1 away. Well, it's 3. Obviously, the number before 4 is 3. You took 1 away, it's 3. Right? He should know that right away. It's amazing how many of our kids don't know that. And if they do know it, fine. You give them another, let's say, sticking with math, something a little harder, the concept of addition and subtraction. I have a great, I'm not going to give it now, I don't think, unless I'll wait for someone to ask for it. A great conceptual understanding of multiplication, which I guarantee will be difficult for most of you guys, because because I've done it with adults. Yeah. So I'm just saying, have fun with this idea of, I think of it as a conceptual approach. When the kid's learning something, what's underlying the learning? What's underlying the behavior? What's the ideas that underline virtually everything? What's the ideas that underline language? I think language comes from ideas, not what's this picture car, what's this boat, who cares? It comes from ideas, it comes from within. So this idea of meaningful engagement, understanding, and I hate to say this, and love Because once you really understand how a kid's mind works, then it's a real bond. Then you can answer any question about the kid because you understand, you get the kid. And a lot of these kids have no one to really understand them. And then they feel isolated and they feel socially isolated. And then it's a vicious circle of not being connected to school, having no friends or very few friends, which is another topic that we should discuss. So I think that gives us an introduction of kind of who I am, where I'm coming from. And thank you for Coach Menachem for opening up a beautiful introduction to this this webinar now, and I'm welcome to go on with whatever Archer has in mind.
Okay, so we're going to start with the 4-question poll. Everybody give the answer what you think it is, and then we will take live questions. Anybody wants to ask a live question, you have the gurus over here in this parsha. Everything is acceptable. Ask whatever question you might have. Feel comfortable, and let's get into it, okay? 4-question poll. Here we go. Let's see if it works this week. Okay. 1 second.
Same problem as last time.
I don't know. I did a double. Okay. Do you believe there's adequate resources and support both for within the school and at home for children with autism spectrum disorder, ASD? It's 3 options. I doubled one because there's a problem. Yes, there's more than enough resources. B, yes, there is enough. Not that there's more than enough. It's just like it makes it. Or option 3, no, there's not enough. Second question, do you perceive ASD to be a greater challenge for children or for adults? It's 4 options. It's harder for children, harder for adults. Both children and adults equally. Depends on the individual's circumstances. Third question, what do you believe is the most effective approach, method to support and treat ASD? ABA therapy, right? Floor time development, individual therapists, individual differences, cognitive approach, teaching proper thinking strategies, or sensory OT approach. The 4th question, what do you believe is the most critical aspect in supporting individuals with autism? What do you believe is the most critical aspect in supporting individuals with autism spectrum, whether children or adults? A, providing sensory accommodations and interventions. B, fostering social and emotional development through relationship-based approaches. Or C, implementing structured behavioral interventions such as ABA. Those are the 4 questions, a lot of questions. You can read them over. And then we'll vote on them. And then we'll hear the input from the gurus over here. And again, anybody wants to ask a live question, please text us over here. Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's share the results with everybody. First question. Do you believe that there's adequate resources and support both within the school and at home for children with autism on the spectrum disorder, ASD? 1% of people feel that there's more than enough. 18% of people feel yes, there's enough. And a whopping 81% feel there's not enough resources. Rob, Nochum, do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I can't argue with 81%. I think that people know what there is out there.
I think partially why people say that there's not enough, because the ones that are there are not really adequate. It's not working, and then you have the illusion if you have more, if you have speech therapy 4 times a week instead of 2, that would make a difference. And see, I would say it's the quality of these connections with your child. Yes, if there's some kind of OT, occupational therapy, or physical therapy, okay, that's a physical thing. That is standard. That's a standard kind of thing. But something like speech, I'm a little more cautious about, because I'm wondering how the speech is being taught. We have to kind of look at that. and see if it's really language and see if it's really meaningful. So yeah, that's not enough, but I would qualify it in saying that you want the right. What I told a parent the other day, I said, your kid needs to connect with something. It could be someone, it could be a therapist, any one of these therapists that we're talking about, or it could be somebody who works in the kitchen. Needs, that's more important. That's more important than having a half an hour of speech therapy and not being effective.
I just want to add to that. I think that's really that's something that's really, really important. Something that you mentioned, Coach Menachem, that teacher, or maybe, I'm sorry, maybe Rob, you said this, that that teachers want something that a teacher can do. I'm sorry, it was you, Rob. What teachers could do is something very simple. Like the teacher's like, there's so many struggles with this kid. And how could a teacher deal with one kid? They have a whole entire classroom to deal with. Just making a connection with the kid. It could take, 2 minutes. Maybe there's something the kid really likes. Maybe he likes to talk about, outer space or coin collecting. The teacher could just, find something to engage with the kid and really connect with the kid, spending a very short amount of time. And that can make such a big difference for the kid. So it's not necessarily the quantity of how many specialized classrooms and how many one-on-one teachers and how many one-on-one hours of therapy. It's really the quality of the support and of what we give for these children.
Let me can I give an example of what you're saying in terms of connecting and quality? When I go into a school, I'm the first one there and the last to leave. I want to see what happens at recess, what happens at lunch, the social dynamics, the whole thing. So this is a girl who is going from one class to another, to her class to art. And she took a long time, longer than anyone else, just getting her things together. Okay, that makes sense. She has trouble doing that. She comes like 3 minutes late to art. And she sits in the back. We're fine. Everyone's on the floor. She sits in the back, fine. And at the very end of and then they do their art project. At the very end of the class, I went over to the teacher. I said, what was the idea of the project? And she said, oh, it was potato stamping, taking a dye on potatoes. And the idea was when you stamp at it, part of that stamp is outside the border. There's some word for that, the border of the paper. And I had no idea. Of course, the kid had no idea. So why couldn't the teacher realize that kid was late? I'm going to have some student explain the idea to the kid, or I'll take, like Nochum said, I'll take 1 minute of my time and go to even though there are 30 kids in the class, go to that kid who came in late, who missed the whole idea of the project. It doesn't take much to be sensitive to these kids and to be aware what these kids need. And she's on the spectrum or had learning difficulties. So neither one of us really had the wherewithal to say, hey, could you please repeat the first 2 minutes of the class that I missed? How do you know what you missed? And you should ask, right? And it's really up to the adults in the room to give these kids what they need in order to be successful.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Do you perceive autism, the ASD, to be a greater challenge for children or adults? 11% of people say children, 8% of people adults, 43% of people feel it's the equal challenge, and 38% of people feel it depends on the individual circumstances. Bob, what's your 30+ years experience?
Well, I'll tell you something that I learned from my friend Wen Lawson, who wrote about 25 books on the spectrum. And he said something to me that I don't think people would disagree. When these autistic kids grow up, they become autistic adults. and that's what we have. And it's when the kid gets out of school, certainly after 21 years old, the services, right, looking at drop. That's it. There's between very little and nothing. And the parents will confirm this, for kids that are out of the system. They don't know sometimes they go to college and they graduate college, but they don't have the wherewithal to get a job and be independent and live independently, right? Because it's all social dynamics. I mean, you could be like Coach Menachem said, you could be high functioning, but be severely socially deficient, if you want to call it that. You know, and just so then what happens? There's so many kids, and I mean, you know this, 25 years old, living with the parents. And that's scary because now whose responsibility is it to get this kid to work, be independent, be happy, have relationships, be married, have a life, an independent life? And like, where's my help? There's nobody there. And, you know, it's, you know, the parents are going to die right? It's like, you know, it's really an ignored population. The adults are just systematically, the system ignores the adults on the spectrum. And that's why, you know, autism speech, this was years ago, $5 million on research. You know what the research went for? The unborn, the causes of autism. How about the 6-year-old kid who needs your help? You know, there's almost no money going into the adults because it's not sexy. You know, it's you know, it's not gaining that impact. There's no funding. It's tragic. It's really tragic, and more attention should be paid with adults on the spectrum or adults in general.
Yeah, the next question is very interesting because you have a split, a four-way split. What do you believe is the most effective approach to support ASD? And obviously every case varies, there's no one answer. But across the board, you have 23, 29, 27, 22, ABA, floor time, cognitive approach, sensory OT approach. So it seems like everybody's like split across the board. I don't know, it's their personal experiences, what they think. Nochum, Rob, from your experiences, can you go through them and tell me if any of them are just a waste of time?
Okay, it's a really good question, and it, you know, so I do ABA therapy, so you know, obviously I'm gonna say that, you know, ABA therapy is effective and it works.
But Nochum, I'll push back on you. A lot of ABA therapy is, I have a family relative who does ABA therapy. She came out of seminary. She took a 2-hour course and she sits with the kids and plays with them. So I'm not knocking it, but it's not exactly
Right. So you know, so really, you know, the best approach is really, you know, you need some of, you know, everything has something to offer. All the approaches do have something to offer, and you know, there's a lot of pushback on the behavioral approach that focusing too much on just, you know, what the kid is behaving, what the kid is doing. So you're really ignoring any understanding of the kid. You're ignoring any why he's acting up, why he doesn't participate in class, why he's not connecting with the class, with his friends. So if you just focus on behaviors and you're a purist, you're an ABA purist, yes, then that's definitely a lot of criticism, and people are finding a lot of difficulties with the ABA field. But you know, on the other hand, if you go too much the other way, too much floor time. I just spoke to you know, a BCBA therapist. You know, she does, you know, she's involved in floor time, and she says sometimes she sees these kids, you know, they don't try to teach them the skills to develop. They're just trying to, you know, just playing with them, engaging with them, and never, you know, directing them and teaching them to learn things they need to learn. And then you're also limiting the kids' development. So you do need to, you know, sometimes focus on the behaviors and getting the kid to change his behaviors. But at the same time, we want to get kids to change their behaviors by understanding the kid's point of view and getting the kid to understand and being on board with changing his behavior.
What's the difference between ABA and cognitive approach? Is there a difference?
It's night and day. It's an incredible, yes, a vast difference. And how about if I tell you a story to illustrate it?
We love your stories.
The behavioral approach, by the way, is concerned with the behavior itself, right? It's the most efficient way to change behavior. We have this all the time. Reinforcement and punishment we can't get away from it. It's part of the natural course of things. So I'm not against behaviorism per se, but as a way of teaching these kids, if you're only interested in the behavior itself, and you're ignoring what's underneath the behavior. I'll distract myself and I'll give you a quick example. The kid comes into class and he's a little upset, and the goal is for the kid to sit down, right? And do his work. So you give him a reinforcement, you say, oh, come on, you sit down, and you give him a candy or you give him some reward or whatever, and he sat down. And then I went to, this is when I was in college, I went to I had two professors. I went to this other professor and I said, isn't that a good way of doing it? And this humanist said, wait, he's upset. Why don't you ask him, what's going on? Maybe his dog died in the morning. If his dog died, then like, forget it. He's not going to be paying attention to you all day. He needs some help or some counseling or to be alone or something. You have to ask him. And I go back to the behaviorist, right? We're going back and forth. This is in college. And he says, well, if you do that to everybody, you'll never get to teach the class. Okay. Then I went back to the youth, right? So you could see where I'm coming from. I'm coming from, wait, I want to know why. All right. The rest of the class could wait, 20 seconds. I want to know what's going on with this kid. And so that's the difference between it's a behavioral mindset. It's a behavioral attitude. It's a philosophy of education. I want the kid to display this behavior. He's sitting down. In the beginning, he didn't sit down. Now he sits down every time he comes into the class because he gets a reward. And after a while, he doesn't even need a reward. Great. Checkbox. Good. And I'm saying, wait, how about the kid himself? How about his, so the kid learns that, but who understands the kid? Who understands, maybe he should sit down because he's really interested in the work. Maybe, oh my God. If I can't say God forbid, but I'm not qualified to say that, but I'm just saying, so, and the cognitive approach is, finding out what's going on underneath the kid. But I want to tell you, can I tell it? Do we have time for a story?
I think you waste more time by asking if we have time for a story. Just say the story.
You didn't have to say that. If you just let me tell the story. So
we have time for the story.
So okay, I bring this kid to a restaurant. It's good. I'm thinking of it. I'm bringing this kid to a restaurant. And he has like a boot on his foot, like a cast, right? There's a broken foot. And I call the owner over. I mean, they know me by now, right? And the owner looks at this kid and says, whoa, a couple of weeks ago, I had the same problem with my foot. I didn't know how to sleep. I couldn't find the comfortable place, a way to position myself in the bed. How do you do it? How do you figure out a way to sleep comfortably? Now, listen to this. The kid says nothing. Now, a behavioral approach, what most people would do would be what? She's talking to you. Answer her question, right? So now, how many people here in the audience know people on the spectrum who answer the question, but not answer, it makes no sense. They just answer and it doesn't make any sense. It's not relevant to the question. Happens all the time because they're taught to answer the question. And no, I didn't say that. The kids, they're saying nothing. What do I say? And if this is a talk, I would wait for answers. What do I say? I say nothing. So the owner, after 20 seconds, walks away. And then I say to the kid, Stacy, the owner, she thinks you're kind of unfriendly. And he says, what do you mean? I didn't say anything. You see what I mean? Just what Nochum said. It's from the kid's point of view, he didn't do anything wrong. That's where the learning takes place. The next 10 minutes with this kid is what every single person here would do. Well, yeah, I know you didn't say anything, but you have to be considerate. You have to be, cordial. You have to be civil. You have to, listen to the person's asking, but he didn't know that. Something that we all assume that in other words, when you say, and I'm sure I'm right about this, when you tell the kid, answer the question, What you have in your mind as an adult is that he's going to answer the question and he automatically knows why. Right? He knows that, right? If a kid drops a pencil and someone else picks it up, what do you say? Say thank you. He'll say thank you because you told him to say thank you. He doesn't really, maybe not really understand why. So I explained to him about that. And then what do? I call Stacy over again. And this is true. I don't care if she asks the same question. I don't care. Because I'm looking at the underlying thing. I want him to respond appropriately. I want him to be civil. I don't want her to ask the same question because then I don't want him to memorize something, and that's where the behavioral point of view. That's where the ABA stuff. That's where the checklist comes. I want him to say what I think he should say, and then he responds, and then okay, he understood something about underlying the non-behavior, in this case, ignoring her, that he may have for the rest of his life. When someone talks to you and asks you something, you need to listen and respond and not just say nothing, because that's what people do. So that's a difference between the behavioral and the cognitive approach. And I could go through each one of these if you want. I don't mind giving you specifics about each one.
But I want to add a specific example because this is something that everybody could use some specific examples how to use it. You come to see a kid and, the kid's supposed to say hi, you say hi to the kid, no response. So, we say, it's instead of giving the kid a lecture, hey, you're supposed to say hi to people when they say hi to you, which would be the behavioral approach. Instead, we want to get the kid to think about, how does it feel like the kid doesn't see that, when the other person says hi, you don't answer, maybe he's offended, maybe he doesn't think you're friendly. The kid's not thinking about all those things. We want to get the kid to start thinking about, someone said hi to me and he doesn't want you to, you don't want him to think you're not his friend. So what could fit more with the cognitive approach, getting the kid to think, would be to say, you don't want to say hi to me? You say it in a friendly and a joking way, you don't want to say hi to me, or, you're saying goodbye. Hey, you don't want to say goodbye to me? And then all of a sudden the kid's realizes it's coming with that feeling he doesn't like it that I didn't say hi to him. And then the sort of kid is going to start to think about, maybe it's important to say hi instead of it just being a rule that when you see people, you say hi. When you see people, when you leave them, you say goodbye. When you talk to them, you look at them, you don't look away. And instead of it, your whole social interaction being, a bunch of rules, you're following rule by rule by rule by rule, which is an endless amount of rules. And the rules are always changing. You want the kid to understand what's behind a friendship, what's behind a social interaction, that he could on his own start doing it.
I love that. And when you said, I'm just going to add one tiny thing when you said, don't you say hi to me? That's fun, right? You're hitting that part of the kid's mind where you want him to think, right? And respond in some way, but it's fun. It's said in a fun way. If you look at the tone that Nochum said it, it's said in a fun way. It's like, what? You don't want to say hello to me? And that's where the learning comes in.
Let's do the last poll, but I want to just jump into questions. There's a lot of questions people want to ask. What do you believe is the most critical aspect in supporting individuals with autism spectrum, whether children or adults? And 9% say providing sensory accommodations, like working around the sensory. But most people, 78%, I think that's what we're really saying, fostering social and emotional development through relationship-based approaches. And 13% say implementing structured behavioral interventions such as ABA. So I think that's pretty much what we're saying all the time, like that relationship and understanding and the back and forth. So let's jump into live questions, okay? Here we go. Everything's on the table. Okay, you're on. Unmute. Hi.
Hi, Dr. Hi, everyone. Okay, there's just so much to say. Thank you for what you said. I don't even know where to start, but so let me ask you one question, if that's okay. We're speaking about so much about, first of all, we're speaking about so many different ranges and ages and stages. Obviously, right, the spectrum is so vast. but I just have a general question, because we put so much emphasis on the school and how to help the children develop and grow and foster. But what about the home? You know, we also need a lot of education in that sense, and I don't hear that spoken as much about. You know, that's taken for granted, as if the parents will know what to do and will develop a relationship. But I don't know. I'm just saying, where's that education support, you know, element put in to place? Are we
Right.
expected to?
Well, I mean, I thought we're talking to parents, so we didn't want to say anything about parents. We blamed everything on the school, but you're right. It's exactly the same thing at home and with parents. Yeah, I'm sorry, Rob. I interrupted you with that.
No, go for it.
No. I was expecting you to talk, but I just had to persist.
That was funny. That was funny. Yeah, I'll tell you what doesn't work when the parents are told what to do with the kid. There's a problem in school, and the parents are told you have to do the homework. You have to help the kid with the homework. You have to do this. You have to do this, and like the kid doesn't want to do it. So now the parents are going to get blamed. This is what I do. I ask, and there are different families. Like, what's the most important thing in your family? I went to a Satmar's house in the Muncie area, and here's a kid who couldn't talk. She's in a wheelchair. She really couldn't talk. And the father said, I want my girl to learn Gemara. And I said, okay, all right, if that's your goal, then it's my goal. Right? So some families love to eat out, and now they can't because their kid misbehaves. Well, that becomes an issue. Some families just love to read, and they can't because the kid is, so I always ask the parents, I know where you're coming from, Joseph, and that is you're coming from a place of, what the schools are telling you to do. And what do we do at home? For the same goals that the schools are telling you that the kid have difficulties with. I want to know what is going, the kid can't get dressed in the morning. I want to know that. I've gone to people's houses 11 o'clock at night. Well, starting at 8 o'clock at night to 11 at night, because the kid had trouble going to sleep. Right? That's important. So I would go and I'll see what the kid needs in order to go to sleep, and I'll figure it out, and I'll tell the parents, try this. Don't get into bed with him, because that's not the greatest idea unless you really have to. And this is what he needs, and so it starts with that. It starts with what are your needs at home that's going to make your family function.
I want to add two points. First of all, one thing that just a general, educational thing, let's say parents want to implement something in the house. They want the kid to, start cooperating with, cleaning up, picking up the garbage, or any kind of thing that, parents, they want to give some kind of, consequence or whatever it is, or even a reward. We want to get the reward the kid to start doing what you're supposed to do. So if you're just going to focus on, the reward or the consequence without thinking about how is the child going to be thinking, how's the child going to be understanding what is going on, it's much more limited. If you're going to reward the kid and tell the kid, look, we're rewarding you, but the idea is not that we want to give you the reward. The idea is that you really want to be a better person. You really want to be better at what you're doing. We're just trying to help you along with this little reward, make it easier for you. But that's not really the idea of it. So if there's that message that you're giving to the kid with your teaching or with your parenting, there's that educational message that's accompanying what we're doing. That's just something that parents could. I'm trying to give something general that parents could incorporate, without getting to all the specifics. When you're trying to parent your kid, think about the message that you're giving over. And sometimes that could be more effective than actual, consequence.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to jump back in because it's not really what I'm asking. I'm sorry. I'm actually asking him on a much like different level of not rewards and benefits, but more of like creating safety, connection, communication. You were talking about longer term goals of the person remaining connected with society, with people, with family. You know, I hate to break it to you. I've learned from a certain section, including my own, that there is a large dropout in the religious community. High functioning autistic people, they are falling. You know, we don't even, and many of them are undiagnosed, late diagnosed, whatever it is. You know, yeshivas didn't know what to do. Schools, nobody has time. Nobody has. It's too much. You know what you're asking the schools to do. They're barely able to even put in mainstream, putting in the curriculum, and then you're saying, okay, they have to stop. It's okay when they're 6 years old. I get the story, but when they're 13, 14, we're trying to do all of that plus the wonderful things that you said, you know, to be able to be compassionate, understanding. Who's got time for that? I'm sorry, that was rhetorical, cynical. But there's so much. And the parents really, I'm in contact with so many parents. The real struggles are not, you know, yes, the schools are blaming for homework and things of that sort, when really the houses are, you know, in sibling interaction, trying to navigate one with the other, remaining connected, not over disciplining, not losing them. It's a lot bigger than that. So that was really my question, not specifically about the education system per se, although that becomes a big part of it.
So if we could break down your question into multiple questions. Number one, how do you get the kid to occupy himself? The kid cannot occupy himself. This is a big concern parents have. He's driving everyone crazy. He needs everybody's attention. He won't give anybody in the family a break. He's all day, he needs people to entertain him. Either he bothers them, he harasses them. How do you get the kid to occupy himself?
Well, I have both. I have one that's in his room all day, doesn't bother anyone, and I have the other one on the polar opposite, who is attacking everyone. So it's even that's not okay.
Right. Okay. So I mean, if you break it down, that would be, let's say, one question, right? Okay. Then another question would be, the kid is torturing his younger sibling. You see the younger sibling, you know, you see the pain in the younger sibling's eyes. What do you do about this older sibling who's, you know, up in spectrum, has challenges, that's nonstop torturing the younger sibling? What do you do about it? How do parents just sit and watch the younger sibling, you know, being demolished by this older sibling, right? That could be another issue. You know, now you also mentioned another question. What do you do about kids that are, you know, dropping out? This is another big concern. Sometimes you see kids, they're so super learning, they're super involved, they're super focused, they won't do anything but learning. They come home for a break, you know, from yeshiva, they're just opening the book, they're opening the sefer. You know, I met a kid and I said, I wanted to say, like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, let's do something like that you enjoy, right? Because, you know, he's learning all day. You know, this kid was 18, 19. You know, there's nothing he wanted to do. I said, maybe we should meet in a bagel store. He goes, no, he wouldn't do that. So what do you want to do with me? He wanted to learn with me. So the idea is, like, he's so, you know, obsessed or rigid about what he's doing. Eventually it's not gonna work. There's gonna be a fallout.
The drug will end.
So are we hitting some of the more specific questions that you wanted to?
Okay, can I jump in here? I just want to, again, not to answer your question, if I may. Don't expect this to answer your question, but I think it's interesting, and the idea of siblings is I had the exact same problem with my older boy who's autistic, hitting his younger son, the younger brother, and my mother, I remember telling and this is coming right from the beginning, I can't wait for the younger one to be old enough to hit you back, you know. So this kept on going on for years, and then I finally said to the older one, I said, would you, he's, you know, didn't want the younger one to do anything, any kind of competition. He wanted to destroy I said, would you rather your younger brother be in a wheelchair so he never has to compete with you and be intellectually disabled, or however, so he doesn't have to think, and he'll never compete with you? And he was young enough, the kid I was talking about is young enough to believe that, you know, that, would you rather have that? He says, no. Okay, well, look, he's the only brother you're ever going to have. And you're going to have to change your ways of hitting him all the time, unless you want him to always be, you know, in a wheelchair, you know, and he from that moment on, he changed. And now they're good friends from now on. But that, I'm a big believer in intervention. I'm not, who was it? It was Coach Menachem who said, the kids will figure it out. I'm a big believer in intervention because the kids may not figure it out, you know? So, the idea of the siblings, I'll just say this one more thing, is very underestimated. And often the sibling could do things for the kid on the spectrum, the brother or sister on the spectrum, that is, no one else can do. So we need to kind of enhance that relationship, as opposed to what I've been told, that I can't wait to go to college so I can just not be bothered by my younger brother who's bothering me all the time. It's not good. That's not good.
Right.
And
the school has to have enough needs. So back to home, what about the parents, the family, grandparents, rabbis, community? That's for the home. I mean, school has a whole system, but what about, there are a few, I know there are some programs, but
I have a really simple answer to that. If you really understand the kid and you know what your child needs, then everyone can be involved. And I love talking to community leaders, rabbis, anybody, right? Because if you know the kid, you know what the kid needs. The kid needs more time to process information. Don't expect an answer right away. I mean, like, there's 100 of these things.
and we need people like you out there teaching the community more. I don't think there is enough knowledge in many places, unfortunately. Awareness.
I mean, so that just, I know a story with a boy that he didn't want to go to shul. He didn't want to go to synagogue. He wasn't comfortable. He's getting closer to his bar mitzvah. So the parents spoke to the Rav to, set something up that when he comes to shul, the rabbi is going to come over and make the kid feel comfortable that this kid should be, willing to go to shul. So, setting up some kind of something in the community, or, with the rab, many, I'm sure any rabbi, he's sensitive to his community's needs, just telling him what's going on, a little thing you could do for the kid, and that can make a big difference, for that specific kid. But the other point that you said, Rob, about one of the big problems is that, I think that there's this overall mentality that, we struggle with, not just in school-wide, but, as parents, that we just need our kids to be what we want them to be. We need them to fit a certain mold, a certain image. And then there's that, well, that, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. And we get caught up in all the things they're not doing right. And instead of appreciating the gift that this kid has, this kid, with his challenges, he really has something unique, something to offer the world that nobody else has. He has his own unique thing that he can offer the world. And if we can understand that and appreciate that, I'll give you a little example. I was learning with a chavrusa about, we're learning about Hashem, how he, different svarim about Hashem guides the world. And I told him, a kid asked me a question. He's like, just because the first man bumped into a tree, all of mankind has to suffer now? So, like, that's a really important question, but the average kid doesn't think that he's supposed to be asking such a question. This kid actually thought of it. Like, they could think of things and they could have real things that contribute to everybody. Their way of thinking about things, I learn from. And so if we could appreciate their uniqueness, and if parents would look at this child like, okay, yeah, he has a problem with friends, he's harassing his siblings, he's getting into trouble with the neighbors, but he has something really beautiful and something amazing that he can offer the world. And if we can value that and cultivate that, that could really change things significantly for the kid.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let's go to the next live question. You're on.
Hi.
Hi.
How can I tell if an adult who is clearly suffering and is having trouble living a productive life, if he's suffering from ASD or trauma, something else?
All right. It's an interesting question. And here's my answer to that. Even I'll say the same thing, even if it's for a little kid. And that is the label really doesn't matter as much as what's going on. So if we had a conversation, if we were the only ones in the room, we could ask whatever 180 people to just step off for a few minutes. I'd be asking you to, like, okay, what's the issue? What's the issue? Okay, well, all right. Is it going to help? And a lot of times, like it's been said, that if the person's on the spectrum, then like my brother, I got a call from my brother's girlfriend, and she says, we go to a party and my brother, Mark, just stays by himself. He just stays by himself. He doesn't interact with any of it. He's a professor at a university. He doesn't want to interact with anyone. And she asked me, is my brother on the spectrum? I go, whoa, this is loaded. Why? I want to know what's going on. And she said, well, if he has Asperger's, I'll marry him. But if he's just an ass, forget it. So sometimes knowing the cause of it, or knowing what we need to have more of a conversation to find out what to do.
The solution is usually the same, or I'm saying if the label doesn't matter,
well,
what does?
It could help. No, I know, I want to qualify that. The most important thing to me is like, what is going on and what can we do about it? If you feel, or he feels, that if he's autistic, that would explain a lot. And that would allow you to breathe and allow you to look at him and him himself in a different way, and allow, more progress to happen from there. Yes, then the label is important. My own kid who's on the spectrum, he didn't know until he was a graduate student. He didn't know until his girlfriend in graduate school called me up and said, oh, did you realize your son's on the spectrum? I go, well, I knew, yeah, since he was 2, I knew he was on the spectrum, but now he's going to know. So I was holding my breath, waiting for him to be either angry at me, being on the spectrum. If I knew, then I would have had a much better life. If, up until then, if I knew it, I would have answered a lot of these questions that I've always had about myself. Or he could have said, you know what, I'm glad I didn't know, because I'm in graduate school. I'm happy. I'm having my own life. So it could go either way.
Okay, thank you.
It's hard to know. Also on the spectrum, so many people have there's such a range, and there could be so many different causes of, so sometimes the diagnosis, making everything diagnosis, is actually not always beneficial, because people could have struggles for so many different reasons. And sometimes it's beneficial because, then it can lead to self-acceptance. Like, okay, now I understand myself. I know why I'm like this. And now I don't have to be so, so ashamed why I'm not doing things the way other people are doing it, because, I work differently. I have a different way of operating, different way of connecting with people. So it could go both ways.
Amazing. Okay, let's go to the next live question.
No, by the way, Usher, I work with a lot of couples, and one couple is often on the spectrum, whether they're diagnosed or not, usually not. And it's usually the male and it's a real interesting dynamic. Why doesn't this guy understand me? How come he doesn't know how I feel? Why doesn't he listen to me? And knowing what the problem is and what to do about it with a couple such as that is just another thing that's important to do, to look at. I personally, I really enjoy that dynamic and helping people like that, married couples.
Okay, amazing. Okay, you're on.
Okay, so I hope I'm not going to open up a Pandora's box here, but I wanted your opinion on, I have a daughter that's developmentally disabled. She's officially diagnosed on the spectrum only because they couldn't come up with any other diagnosis for her. She, as a baby, very, very obviously and clearly, we saw a correlation of regression and damage from vaccines. As soon as like a day after she got vaccinated, she started having seizures and it went downhill with each vaccine. So I went on a path of education. Again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer at all. I just became an educated vaxxer. And I'm curious what you can help let us know about how we family members that have seen this detrimental effect when there's so many vaccines given to babies, specifically in the United States, how we can communicate with our pediatricians. If you have an opinion on this, and if you could help out with navigating pediatricians for the next kids, or even for the grandchildren, when we don't feel comfortable giving a slew of vaccines even from pregnancy, from even before the baby's born, they're already giving vaccines, and in the hospital, and then throughout the first 2 years. I'm wondering if you could enlighten us a little bit on your opinion on that.
I'm going to get into trouble, anything that I say on the topic, so I'm just not going to say anything, and I'll let Rob take full control.
I don't mind getting into trouble. Well, at least so far, the science says the vaccines are okay, right? But then when you look at individual cases, I think there was a case that a girl got vaccinated with 9 vaccinations in one day. And then, and so then there's this, it's hard to think about it. It's hard to prove that. What are you going to have, a controlled study with 9 vaccinations, suffice 5 vaccinations? You can't really, prove it, but it's in the back of a lot of people's minds, like my own, that I'm not going to have a lot of, and some people say on that it's just the number of vaccinations rather than the kind of vaccinations. I don't know. I just don't know. But when you talk to people who are, pro-vaccine, the scientists, and they know the history, they'll say, if it's my kid, I'm not going to have them have several vaccinations at once. I'm just going to, but that's all I can tell you. There's a lot of people in your position. I'm just saying the science is
Right,
not.
but you're saying the science is proving that it's safe, but really, if we look at what's going on right now with ADHD, anxiety disorder, OCD, peanut allergies, asthma, eczema, how is that the science is okay? Maybe we don't have as much measles, rubella, and whooping cough, which anyway, really, they say did go down once the population got more sanitized and cleaner and healthier in other ways. But we do have a classroom full of all various other type of diagnoses now, not just autism. And I don't know, maybe that's a correlation.
Right. So just to keep the conversation back, because this is a very important topic and people are very passionate about, and I've been involved. I was on a forum of, having this discussion. I myself don't know enough about it. I hear things from both sides. And one thing we could say is that, there's a lot of unknown. Sometimes your specific story, I definitely understand that, you saw a clear correlation and it was clear to you. But for some people, there's a lot of just question marks. They really don't know, maybe something during birth happened and there was some complication, and maybe that's why the kid is the way he is. And we can never really answer these questions. And it's just like, maybe sometimes we just need to, I'm not talking about your specific, story because, you saw a clear correlation, but, people can speculate all kinds of things, and we just need to let go. And, we don't always know what it was.
Right. That's why I was curious to see.
And then the same time, if you can still help these kids by teaching them, they'll still develop, they'll still grow, they'll still become smarter, they'll become more adapted to society by teaching them. Because I see this approach works the same, whether it's what you call ASD, or sometimes there can be some other diagnosis, which I worked with a child and I was told he really has another diagnosis, but they got the ASD diagnosis, it's really something else. And he was improving the same as all the other kids that I've worked with. So in terms of how we help them, I don't really see a difference in, what the cause is. I just see, the kids struggling, and we help them grow and learn. And the brain has this way of developing. The brain does grow, it develops.
Right.
I do have to just to mention that what Rob said is very important. A lot of times you do go to the doctor and they go through that 4 or 5 shots at once, and there's nothing wrong with trying to say let's do it a little bit spaced out. If you have any concern whatsoever, there's no emergency to do it that day. Sometimes you go with your kids and they literally give them 5 or 6 shots of different things at once. It just seems like a lot. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay. Hi.
Hi. Hi, thank you so much. I'm talking about an 18-year-old boy who's on the spectrum. Do you have anything to suggest how to help him entertain himself? Because he constantly asks for help when it comes to being entertained.
Yeah, I think this is one. I gave a little talk for parents of children with high functioning autism. And this, I think, was like probably the biggest concern that they had. How do you get the child to occupy himself, keep himself busy?
Well,
So what did you say?
great. Thank
I'm
you.
gonna let the Rebbe, a student is not supposed to speak up and decide halachic questions in front of his rabbi. So I'm gonna let my rabbi speak.
Well, first of all, he's in school or is he out of
Yes,
school?
yes.
Okay. Does he like anything at school in school?
Yes.
What?
He likes the learning and he generally likes the social life, not all the time, but most of the time.
I would start with that. I would start with things that he likes. If he needs a rabbi or a partner to come in and study with him, see what do you is it just learning between him and the rabbi? It's learning in a group. It's learning with a friend. I love the idea of learning with a friend, and I would introduce that if he doesn't have that. I mean, if he likes learning, have a friend from the community, have someone coming in and say, okay, this could be as often as, this could be every day. And this could be a wonderful way of him being occupied. I mean, there's nothing wrong with learning. So I would start with some of the things that he likes. And I also like the idea of getting out. Today was like, I don't know, 60 degrees or something. I also like the idea of getting out as something that he might like to do, right? And that opens up a whole other realm of activity. The other thing I'll say is that I work through Zoom, and I'll bring people on Zoom together, and people are really establishing genuine friendships through talking with each other on Zoom, and then they'll meet in person as well. So it's sort of an easy way of meeting people. I have one person who's brilliant. He's talking to professors of Hittite. I mean, on Zoom, you can meet almost anybody in the world, and that could be a way of him interacting and also being occupied.
Yes, so that's really what, I try to do the same thing, when I work with the boys that I work with, the children that I work with, it's always looking for ways, both friends that have similar interests or things that, the kid may interest him, if it's a hobby, if it's an activity, and you try to, encourage the kid, encourage the individual to get more involved in that. Maybe it's a sport. So maybe it's reading, maybe he likes to read certain things. So you get him, certain books on topics that he likes to read about, or listen. And, if it's listening to, those topics, looking for different things that interest him specifically, and he'll start getting more engaged in that. Now it is a process because, it's easier for them to just put it on everybody else. I mean, I think that's part of the challenge. They're like, I don't have to work hard to keep myself busy. It's your job. It's the whole world's job to figure out how to keep me busy. I'm bored. You figure out how to keep me busy. And then our challenge is to sometimes, you know, so I'm adding now a new thing, besides for finding things that the child might interest in, if the child is resisting it, you could say, look, I'm here to try to help you. I can give you ideas, but, that's the most I can do. I can't force it upon you. So that's another dynamic. If the child is saying, I don't want to do the things you're telling me to do, I want you to keep me busy.
But that's the topic tonight, really, to understand the child. So it takes time to go down to that child's level and having the conversation with the child, understanding what the child likes. And obviously, in the beginning, the child is gonna say, what do you want to do? He'll say, "Ich weiß nicht." That's the first answer. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So being able to have that conversation and coming up with ideas, making it easier, but it does put the work on the parents. And eventually, hopefully, make some connections where he can connect.
Right. And here's the thing. Sometimes parents say, look, I'm trying to do everything for him, but nothing's working. And then it sometimes comes down to, because there's that dynamic that the boy or the kid doesn't want to have that hard work of having to occupy himself. He wants, just give me a credit card that I can go to the store and spend $20. That's how I want to occupy myself.
What do you want to buy?
I don't want to just have to work hard on doing something that doesn't cost money. Give me the $20 and that's what I want to do. And then comes the conversation of like, I can't supply you with endless amount of money to just do what, there's that learning of him understanding other people and other people's boundaries and what parents are capable of. And that's also part of the learning process. And then we can, by letting go of us having to figure it all out for him, is sometimes also gives the child now the space to, need to come up with things to figure out. Look, I can come up with a bunch of ideas for you, but I can't make you not bored. If you're bored, that's really your problem. And you're gonna have to somehow figure out what to do with that.
I want to just add one thing to this. We're talking about what he wants to do. And I'm saying, wait a second, isn't that what we're talking about? Good education? Where's the educational part? I just want to bring that in. I own the term chess therapy, chess. If he likes chess is a wonderful game in order for the kid to learn all kinds of things. Looking at a situation from another person's point of view. When the other person made a move, what could he do to why did he make that move? I mean, there are so many things you could learn that's really important in terms of the kid's development through some of these games, even video games. So kind of keep that in mind as the kid gets engaged with things that he likes.
So when you're saying that he should entertain himself, and I forgot which one of you said he has to learn the boundaries of the people around him, right? Because I want you to do with me. How do I explain to him the boundaries?
Right. So sometimes instead of explaining it directly, it's about, so look, so here's the tricky part. We want you to keep yourself busy. So if it's something that I'm trying to get you to do, if I want to try to get someone else, a kid, to do something, he's like, well, I don't want to listen to you. I'm not interested in listening to you.
I don't know how to do it. That's
right.
Tell me what to do.
Right. Yeah. You're telling me that I should go keep myself busy. I don't know what to do. But now, what does he want to do instead? Does he want to just sit in his room quietly and not bother anybody? Or no, now he wants to ask you for something or get something out of you. And then, once that's the dynamic, he's trying to get something from you. You're like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Then you can't force me to do what you want to do. And then, so that's in terms of working out the this boundary issue, because they don't always want to respect other people's boundaries. And then, one of the ways to deal with that is, I don't force you, but you can't force me. And then when we're not dealing with that boundary struggle, if we could have a real conversation, look, if you're ready to have a real talk, I can sit down with you and give you a bunch of ideas and we can figure out something that might actually help you.
I want to jump in here and give you an example of exactly what you're saying. You have an opinion and this kid has an opinion, right? Okay, here are two kids in my office about your kid's age. One wants to have ice cream, one wants to have pizza, and they're both totally obsessed with it. No boundary. It's just, well, do what I want to do what I want to do. And the other kid's the same way. And I say, well, I let the situation dictate the boundary. Instead of getting into a fight, I go, well, in another 10 minutes, it'll be too late to go anywhere. And one of the kids says, okay, we'll get ice cream. And then I said, okay, now I went to the kid who wanted ice cream and he said, okay, what do you think? Great. He said, ice cream, let's go. I said, wait a second. Now the therapy starts. He wanted pizza. You know, what do you think? And it takes him a while. All right, next time we'll have pizza. All right, now. Well, wait a second. That's not enough. Maybe next time he'd want something else. Maybe he'd want, you know, a different kind of food. Maybe Chinese. Maybe he wants a falafel, you know, maybe. So it's like, you want to respect him next time. Next time may not be pizza. Next time is whatever he wants to do. So it's kind of a learning experience and kind of giving up your blinders that's on your mind where the boundaries come in. Kids being inflexible is what you want to change. You want these kids to learn to be flexible. So there are different ways of doing that.
Okay, so that's what's brilliant about how Rob does this approach, that, you know, okay, so the kid finally gave in, let's just get the pizza. And Rob is saying, like, for most people, okay, great, you know, we had a great session, we got the kid to give in, and now we continue doing the pizza. And Rob is saying, no, that's not the point, you know, but what about the other kid? And, that back and forth, that's the real therapy, to get that, to challenge that thinking and to get them to really think. And that's how Rob really, that way he really owns this approach of really getting to the kids' thinking and developing the kids' thinking.
All right. You want another story, don't you?
1 second. Now let's go to the next question. It's a good.
You see?
See?
I knew it.
Let's
Go
go to
ahead.
the question. It's an important question.
You were a little late.
Rob, can I go? I have a question. If you could present to the guest. Okay, parents came to me, it's the therapist, with the following dilemma. They have a 16-year-old child in yeshiva who believe is on the spectrum. He wasn't officially diagnosed as they didn't want to label him. However, he's been working with an ASD psychologist guiding the parents. Recently, he's been exposed by friends to explicit sexual material that ended up him stealing money and purchasing a smartphone and being hooked onto it. The parents came to me hysterical and broken that all their hard work investing in the child has been lost. They managed to convince him to give up the device that he owned and being torn and addicted to stealing, and now he wants expensive motorized bikes as compensation for giving up his smart device. What do you recommend to the parents to do and how to manage the child's while keeping a loving relationship?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a really important question. But I would say a couple of things. Is it okay that I'm talking first?
Sure. Go for it.
So first of all, with this, the sexual, the sexual nature of his behaviors is going to be a big worry for parents in the frum community, because that's not acceptable. That's something that we learn about from young age, not to engage in that kind of thing. And that worry on the parents' head is what's behind a lot of this, like, desperation. They're like, desperate, what do we do over here? All our hard work that we invested in this kid from when he was a little kid is just all about to go down the drain. And it's like the parents are going to be panicking at this point, and it's very hard to educate and be effective when you're in that state of panic and desperation. So the number one thing, which I think that the parents, or anybody in any situation, is that this is a challenge that the child is going through, just as any other challenge that may be coming up for the child. His challenge turned out in this way. It doesn't say anything about, their education. And, kids, when they get to a certain age, yes, they do have an interest in sexual content, especially if he may be struggling in other areas.Maybe he doesn't have enough friends. Maybe he's not connecting with his learning. He's not enjoying his learning. So this is maybe the only thing right now he's really enjoying, and he really needs some kind of thing in his life that he can enjoy. And so he's going to be, just go after that. So if the parents would understand the kid's point of view and look at this like, this is a challenge that he's going through like any other challenge, that kids can go through, and we can work with him and we can help him, we can guide him, and he's going to get over it just as any other challenge. They won't be in that state of desperation, and they won't have to act out of panic, which will be helpful for them to be more level-headed and deal with it in a much more appropriate and balanced fashion.
I love that. Right. The kid is hurting. The kid is lost. The kid needs help. And I think I want to emphasize one thing that you just said, and that is you could only help these kids if you're calm. If your kid is displaying high anxiety and yelling, you need to be, I could show you 2 or 3 books right now. They all say the same thing. You as a therapist, as a parent, if you want to help somebody and who's hysterical, you need to be calm without saying, calm down. Who calms down? I don't know if anyone, hey, calm down. I don't know, has that ever worked? But if you're calm, and if you think of what Nochum just said, if you're calm, then you can start thinking the way Nochum is just thinking. It's like, all right, kid's hurting. Where's his connection in life? What positive thing does he need instead of being punished for stealing, which is okay if you want to go that route, but what positive thing could he have in his life that maybe he's never had before? Yeah, maybe a genuine friend, or maybe something that's important to him. So I love that answer.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that helping the kid, the immediate response to this incident, the kid stole, he did what he wasn't supposed to do. The fix is not something just to immediate stop the behavior. There's a symptom over here we need to address. If this kid was happy, this kid felt productive, then he wouldn't be doing that kind of thing. And, it's not like the kid is really happy to be going and stealing and doing that. He knows it's not right. But so we got to find something in his life. We need some kind of change. Maybe he has some kind of passion, some interest that nobody ever recognized that he had and could be developed. Maybe he likes to build. I like to build. Maybe he likes singing. Maybe he likes music. Maybe he wants to earn money. I saw one of the chats, let's figure out how he could earn money, make his own money, make a business. He'll be excited about earning money, and then, stealing won't be important anymore because, hey, I can earn my own money. So there's so many other things to, let's look into, because that's really what the direction that's pointing to when the kid is, dealing with this situation.
Okay, let's go to the next live question. You're on.
Thank you. So hi, my name's Eliana. I'm 22 years old and I'm autistic, and I was wondering, for me and other people in the community who are autistic, how we might be able to apply our experiences towards being part of the conversation on autism and helping to make the community better for not just ourselves, but for other autistic people and for all the kids and their parents and everyone who's involved in this.
Wow. Thank you for coming on. I do a webinar for the USAA, and it's free. And it's called Voices, hearing people's voices like yourself, making your voice known, is really important. And here's, I've been interviewing with my co-author, we've been interviewing adults about their childhood experience. I mean, maybe 20 of them. Every single one of them has one thing in common. They all say one thing that's exactly the same, and that is when they were kids in school, they weren't listened to. They weren't listened to. And it's time for people, like yourself, who has this very strong voice, being autistic yourself, to share with other people, so that we could learn so much from you. What happened when you were 6 years old? Were you bullied? Were you taken advantage of? Were you made to feel left out of things? I mean, there's so many stories that you can give us to help enlighten us as to what we could do now with the 6-year-old in our class, or the 18-year-old, like the parents saying, an 18-year-old at home. I mean, there's so much information that you can share with us, and it's just a blessing that you're on today.
Yeah, and
Thanks. Just want to say I really appreciate that.
I want to add to that we're living in a very narrow-minded world that, everybody has to think a certain way, act a certain way, do it a certain way. And we need people like you that can offer something that nobody else could offer to the world, a different perspective, a different way to look at things, to understand other people and other perspectives, because, especially to understand, there's so much you can give in understanding, other people like you or kids that are growing up with different challenges. And it really boils down to, what we're trying to discuss. It's about understanding other people, understanding what they're going through, hearing their point of view, because there's something that you have that we don't have, or that I'm saying that I may not have, or someone else may not have, but you can offer that.
I love that, because like just what I was saying with siblings, sometimes the siblings in a better position than anyone to do certain things for that child. And you would be a wonderful asset to become on, say, on a Zoom call with, I'm thinking of this girl who has suicidal, she tried a couple of times to commit suicide. All right, now I could talk to her, but maybe hearing from you, it might be more effective, So that, there's so much that you could come on with, and with Zoom, it's an easy kind of thing to do, to have a real direct effect on people who really need that connection with somebody else.
Thank you. That was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next live question. You're on.
Hi, the busy single mother and the pressured private school teachers of an 8-year-old boy who is doing well academically are pushing for a neuropsych evaluation of the boy in order to get a diagnosis and seek control of the boy through medication. The boy is expressive in performances, cooking, sports, jokes, dancing, arts, openly likes attention, but expresses disliking being controlled. And he doesn't look at people when communicating, and he just acts rather than communicating. It's just easier for him to, instead of asking permission or acknowledge boundaries of other people and their things. What do you say to evaluators, to teachers, to the mother?
Well, sometimes teachers see a challenge, they see a difficulty with a child, and it's just easy to say, okay, just give the medication and then it will fix the issue.
Right.
And our whole presentation is about, let's understand me. Don't just try to fix me or give me some kind of medication that's gonna, because the medications have a lot of side effects, and there's certain things that maybe reduce certain symptoms, and then it increases other symptoms that the kid now has to suffer with.
Yeah.
I'm not saying medication never has a place, but if that's the first resort, and that's the first thing that the teachers want to throw out, it's really a cop-out on educators.
I'll just throw something else in here. And you're talking about he likes to be controlled, or he's controlling the situation. Well, I happen to like basketball. And if you're a good basketball player, if you play the game well, you need to pay attention to another person. If someone's open under the basket, you can't control the ball. You can't always be the one to shoot the ball. You have to, I would want to teach him about giving up his control by playing one of these sports that he likes, and have him have a change of mindset.
It's great. He really wants to play football.
Yeah, it's perfect. And if you do that, then maybe he wouldn't even need the medication, because he'd be thinking in a different way.
Yes, I worked with a boy. He was 13 years old, and he had a really hard time focusing and learning in class and school. And all the people that tried to come learn with him, his chavrusas, he just didn't want to learn with anybody. He refused. He didn't want to work on it. And And what happened was, he finally found somebody that was going to work with him. And this person was trained in an approach to teach focusing. It's, there's a Neuralinks program. It's to teach the mind how to focus. And the person said, let's talk about, this kid loves sports. He said, let's talk about, baseball, playing baseball, hitting, there's so much focus. There's so much that you have to learn how to focus to be good at the sport. So this kid was now motivated to work on his attention to be able to get good at the sport that he wanted to get good at. So we can definitely teach attention. We can teach these things, but we may need to find what really motivates the kid and then teach it through that activity.
Yeah. What was the focus program that he used?
So this was the Neuralinks program. So it is a hard program because it's very like strict step by step. It's one approach to teaching focusing. And like Rob said, you could teach focusing in a more natural way. If it's a younger kid that's not ready for a more intense program, he'll be ready. He can learn how to focus doing what he likes to do. And we have to engage him at his level and his age.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the last live question, and we're going to cover some other ones. Okay, you're on.
Thank you so much. I've appreciated everything that has been said. My question is, over the years working in special education and counseling, I've seen a lot of boys when they go through puberty. It's from the lowest functioning to the highest functioning. It's like their family winds up having to hold their breath until they're out of puberty. What recommendations do you have? Because yes, they've tried medication, they've tried different behavioral therapy techniques, and it's so hard because the boys themselves are crawling out of their skin, and in the process of crawling out of their skin, it's like the tumult that they can cause in the house in trying, and it even if it's their way of communicating the tumult they feel inside physically that they don't understand, somehow they need the help, and the family needs the help. What do you recommend?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think this is unfortunately, a significant issue, a serious issue in the frum community. And there is a very wonderful book that was recommended, but that was just put out, maybe it's, by Shlomi Zimmerman, From Boys to Men. And it's specifically on this topic, helping boys go through the stage of puberty and dealing with the Torah's laws and restrictions about sexuality, and how to deal with it in a healthy emotional way that it doesn't consume the child with guilt, or it doesn't lead to all kinds of negative ways of acting out. Now, kids that are on the spectrum, they may, or it doesn't have to just be kids on the spectrum. Maybe it's kids with ADHD or children that have challenges, are obviously, when it comes to this kind of issue, they may suffer from it more than, suppose, let's say, the average kid. So then it will be the same thing. It's helping them work through this by, first of all, preserving their self-esteem, that it's okay that they may not be perfect in this area, and nobody's expected to be perfect. And at the same thing, it's working through their other challenges of, developing their own sense of worth, they're a unique, valuable person for who they are. They have, building up what they're good at. They can feel successful at what they're good at, building up their friendships, finding different ways how they can make real friendships. Like, Rob was giving many suggestions, a lot of work about, that. And, and one of the main things is not to get into that desperate panic mode. Like, oh no, this kid is undermining the whole, his whole life of education, because, maybe the education system didn't prepare the child enough to deal with it, because this is not a topic that was discussed. It was just like, don't do that. Don't hang around girls. Don't do that. And then it's like, all of a sudden, boom, he wants to hang around girls. He wants to do all these things. And then he's not equipped to, so he's going to maybe act the ways we would not want him to act. But if we can accept him and be patient with him, then we can help him reach a better place.
Thank you. I'm also picturing a number of boys who are not even looking to be with girls and not necessarily doing what would be inappropriate al pi halacha, but boys who just, they're already sensorily challenged, and then they have this, and it just seems this time period they're far more aggressive. So maybe we're just attributing it to puberty, where they don't have the words to express what they're uncomfortable with. And they may not cognitively be in the place to understand that or have that conversation. I think, does that better help clarify my
Well,
question?
you brought up something really important that we haven't talked about at all, and that is a good portion of people on the spectrum. I'm talking about 80, 90%, and there are statistics backing this up, who have sensory sensitivities.
Yes, yes. And so now it's like the temperature has been increased by 100 degrees all of a sudden for them.
Right. And the issue when that happens, we're not aware of the smells, the cleaning smells of the night before. We may not be aware of that, or the perfume that might be there, or the lights, or the noise, or the number of kids in the room, or so when the smells in the lunchroom. I mean, we may not even be aware of it, and the kid may not even be aware of that's the issue, and then they go off. And we really have to consider that, as that's the number one thing I think we really should consider, because it's, it might be really obvious. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you. So when we consider it, what do we do?
Well, it's a good question. It depends on obviously what it is. I mean, kids will have headphones if it's too much noise, or, but I'll tell you, we have to be careful. Simon Baron-Cohen, one of the, leaders of the autism world, he said, maybe the classroom, the way the classroom is set up, it's like fish would, freshwater fish. And the kid just feels really uncomfortable with the way it's set up, whether it's the number of chairs or the lighting or whatever. And then what does the teacher do? They say, well, you know what? You're uncomfortable, leave, go into another room, go into the principal's office, calm down, and then come back. I mean, that may work with some kids, but in this example, so he goes into his saltwater environment and he's fine. And then he still comes back to the freshwater environment. And you're wondering what is wrong with the kid, where it really might be, maybe he needs to sit near the window, or maybe he needs to sit up front, or maybe he needs to sit up in the back. Maybe he needs to move a little on the side of the room. Maybe he just needs to move without disturbing other people. So it's that kind of thing. It's just an awareness thing. And then once we know what it is, talk to the parents. Maybe the parents could help. Once we know what it is, then we can do something about it.
And I think what you're saying about this age of puberty, that their sensory needs really spike, and so really, it's okay to have sensory needs, and they need to find a way to, sometimes the sensory needs are very strong because, maybe they're limited in other areas like social interactions. They don't get that. So they have much more of a need for that sensory satisfaction. But we need to find for them what they can do that's appropriate, activities or things that they can engage in, and let them do what feels good for them, and they can let it out in appropriate ways, and understand that they have that need, and find the things that they can do to, to give them that sensory input, without it being about just, okay, we have to somehow restrict them from not doing what they shouldn't be doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Here's a question that somebody sent in before we go to closing. Here, our son was a real intense learner for all his high school and post-high school years. Now he is refusing to learn and daven and function. Basically, something happened and he stopped. What's your recommendation?
You're bringing up a really important point, and we haven't even discussed it, and schools don't really discuss it that much, and that is How about the kid being happy? How about the person being happy? Maybe he worked well in school, in high school. He was motivated to learn, like a lot of kids are. And now when they're on their own, so to speak, now he doesn't have the pressure to go from 10th grade to 11th grade, then he feels empty. You know, he might be a child, a young adult, who's been his whole life doing things for someone else. I remember the first time my parents said, okay, this decision, this life kind of decision is up to you. I go, what? You've been telling me what to do my whole life. Now it's my decision? And it had to do with school and that's, you know, it's in Jewish studies, actually. It's really interesting. Like, now it's my decision. So it sounds like, you know, the kid listened to what other people wanted him to do. And at a certain point, and Nochum talked about, and at a certain point, you know, when he takes a breath, and there's nothing inside to guide him and to motivate him and direct him. And he has to find that place now to direct him, to make him whole. And it may have to do with studying, or may not. We don't know.
Yeah, and I want to add something to that might help for the closing. That you know, a lot of what we discussed is really there's a verse in Mishlei. It says, "Educate the youth according to his way, that even when he gets older, he won't abandon it." Because if the education is not according to the child's individual way, it's not connecting to the child. He's not happy. He's not feeling like, hey, this is really feels good. This is really meaningful. This is really valuable. Instead, he's educated in a way just to follow the box that everybody else said. This is how you have to act. This is how you have to behave. And his whole life, he's just doing what he's told to do. And then when he gets older, he just can't do it anymore. And then there's that break. But if we can educate the youth according to his way and give him a meaningful education that he can really develop, then even when he gets older, he won't drop it. Now, that's not answering what do you do once we reach that point, but then the challenge will be, let's try to, you know, go back to trying to start again as much education as we could to give him something meaningful in life, and realize that, you know, at this point, he may not be able to do all the things because of, you know, he's already in that position.
Okay, let's go to the closing segment over here. First of all, big thank you to Robert and Nochum for coming on again tonight and giving tremendous chizuk and a lot of deep talk. We went into many different angles tonight. Hopefully people will watch it and the replay, and you know, they really take it to heart, and they gives them some guidance to move forward. If anybody wants to join the WhatsApp chat, you can WhatsApp me at 732-314-7010. I'll send you the community link. You can also go to menachembernfeld.com and you'll get the emails and all the replays. Again, if anybody's here the first time, every Sunday night at 9:30, this Zoom ID, we have different topics, different rabbanim. We try to really cover some very important things. Next week, March 10th, we're going to have a deep discussion with Rabbi David Bear Pinson. He's a dynamic speaker. He speaks all over. Speaks a little bit mystical topics, and we don't have the exact topic yet, but it's going to be something interesting. So please join. Again, everything is recorded. My channel will be menachembernfeld.com. If anybody has any questions, you can email coachmenachem@gmail.com. Everything is recorded. It will be up on his website, menachembernfeld.com. It will be on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts, on all the podcasts on Kalaloshan. People want to listen to that on the phone. It will be up on the phone numbers tomorrow. The share is number 178. Phone number to call is 732-905-9011. That's 732-305-9011, 732-305-9011. If anybody would like to be in contact with Robert Bernstein, his phone number is 914-330-3393. His email is rjb@autismspeech.com. You can go to his website, robertjbernstein.com. If anybody wants to get in touch with Nochum, his phone number is 732-231-7363. His email is office@realchangeaba.
7563.
732-231-7. What is it?
7563. Apologize for that.
7563.
I'm sorry, 5763.
5763. Email him at office@realchangeaba.com. His website is realchangeaba.com. Menachem will put in the email. I'll post it again on the chat. And again, anybody wants to buy Rob's books, they're called, you can type in Robert Bernstein in Amazon. One is called Uniquely Normal, and the other one is Uniquely Normal Manual. And again, thank you to all the advertising sponsors, Lakewood Scoop, Ellen Arrow, Foxtown Central, Chayla Kaufman from JCN. And we're going to go to the closing. First will be Menachem, and then will be Robert, and we'll end it off with Nochum. And I just want to say, I love doing these programs where we're dealing with specific situations. I personally see a lot of people, I could say it's because of the shots, I could say it's because of the world we live in, the cell phone technology, we don't know, but we do see people that have children on the autism spectrum, and we do see even adults on that spectrum. And when we see it, we try to say, like, not really deal with it or look at it because it's not our problem and we don't know how to deal with it. It's one of those things that we just stay away from because it's just so not our field. So for the people that don't ever have to touch this part of their life, I guess good for them. It could be, listen to this, understand the challenges, and even if it's not your child, you can learn how to understand the person and be there for the person and understand their needs. When you see a kid in shul, there was a famous story recently that a few years ago, that I used to go to a certain shul, and there was a kid that was on the spectrum, used to scream a lot during davening. He used to come, his father used to bring him, and a lot of the congregants were upset. They went over to the father and they said, he's not a well child. Why are you bringing him to shul? He causes disruption. And the father went to the rabbi, and the rabbi gave a speech, and he said, his screaming is more important than your prayers, because he's trying to express himself in his way. So if we're not in this parsha, in this situation, we should listen to tonight and really resonate and be thankful that we're not, but also be compassionate, understand there's not just some crazy kid screaming. There's emotions, there's feelings, there's human being in there. And for the people that deal with this, whether they think their child might have it, they should seek the proper help. Listen to tonight's things, you hear what people deal with, and you try to pick up on the signals, and you get your child the proper help that they need. And I think what we learned from tonight is not that we're trying to give them the right pill or what's the magic answer, is really to be there, understand them, and try to emotionally connect with him so we could really help him be the best who he could be and help him guide him through life. So that's what I feel is very important, and the reason why it's relevant to everybody, because everybody knows somebody in their world. And going out of the autism ASD spectrum, I'm going to take it to the next level. People that are regular functioning people, we have to be the same way. There's emotions and they express things a certain way, and we have to be compassionate, understand where they're coming from. I don't think most people are evil or cuckoo. I think people are just misunderstood, and it's a very complex world. So I really appreciate Rob and Nochum for coming on and really clarifying a lot of things tonight. And we're going to go to Coach Menachem, then Robert, then Nochum.
Thank you very much, Robert and Nochum. I think it's a very important conversation to have for schools, parents, and I have to say it's not that easy to implement what we discussed tonight. It's not that easy to, the teacher, the school, the system, the classroom. It's not easy. Sometimes we do need that help from outside. You have a teacher with 30 kids in the class. What are you going to do? So it's important to discuss it, to understand the child, and that's what it boils down to. For that, the parent, the teacher, somebody who can connect. We can connect to the child, give it some time. And so you could be able to understand, you can understand them, they'll feel understood. And hopefully they will be able to express themselves no matter where they are. But not always that easy. And that's why it's important to sit and talk about it, to hear from others, try to figure out. And Rob, we still need the concept of multiplication. Maybe you'll have to come back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Why does 5 times 4 always equals 4 times 5? Why is that always the case? And we'll leave it, but I want to thank you.
That means we're going to be on for another 2 hours.
At least 2 hours, at least. I had to give you the, but really, thank you. And I love your format, because it should be the way this is, 90% questions. And that's how, in fact, I know we didn't answer all the questions, and you're welcome to email me or Nochum. And I mean, that's why we're here, to give you real answers to real questions. And so I thank you for this format and what you're doing for the community. I want to thank Usher for that example of the screaming kid. I know in my own synagogue, parents told me personally I had to leave because the synagogue couldn't accommodate my kid who was on the spectrum. They say they're open, they say all the right things, but when it comes down to it, these kids and families feel rejected and they leave. And it's, you know, I was going to say it's a shanda, but I don't know if I'm quite qualified for that. But I guess my message is to end with is, and we touched upon this, is that kids should be their authentic selves. And the kids learn, especially girls, they learn not to be authentic. It's called masking. They learn how to act, and sometimes they get unnoticed. They're not even tested to be on the spectrum, and they get tested when they're adults. But they learn not to be authentic, whether it's this kind of behavioral kind of thing that we're talking about earlier, or personal or emotional, not connected. Even with their friends, they're not themselves. So, I mean, to me, that's everything. You know, that's really everything. To be authentic, a sense of self, your self-esteem. So I just wanted to bring home that one point again. And again, thank you for having me. And if I offended anyone, I'm very sorry. Usher.
I forgive you. Nochum, let's go after 2.5 hours.
Yes, thank you so much, Coach Menachem, for that. You know, you really bring out, you know, the understanding and the depth of the discussion. You know, the introduction, all the questions. And Rabbi Usher, I think you're also becoming a therapist. I think maybe you should, you know, you should start opening up shop. But
I do the program, and I said this years ago, because I can't afford therapy. So this is my therapy.
Look, this is it, and this is my therapy. You know, that's what I'm doing. This the same thing exactly. So yes, I just want to finish off. First of all, you know, I tried answering questions. I don't know if it at all had to do with the question that the person was asking. Anybody that wants to follow up with additional questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach out to Rob. You can reach out to me. You could email me. You could, you know, send it through my website. I will try to give a response on my website. I'm also going to be, as I'm starting a little mini podcast on the Autism magazine, which is given out to Tom's River. And on the website, they're going to have a little mini podcast that I might be able to address additional questions that we possibly didn't address. And I just want to finish off with that story that you said, Rabbi Usher, about the kid that was screaming, and that was his davening. There's something that I think that, you know, these children or these people have. They have something that a lot of people don't have. They're really authentic. A lot of kids I see that, you know, they're getting close to bar mitzvah. They don't want to daven. Like, they won't go to shul. Why? Because they're not going to do something that's not meaningful to them. But once they start understanding what davening is really about, then they'll daven, then they'll really daven. The problem is that they don't just want to just comply because that's what everyone else is telling them to do. That doesn't work for them. It has to be really meaningful, really authentic. And sometimes even if he's not doing all the davening we want him to do, but let's wait and let's let him be the real person he can be and the real davener, and that's what's more valuable.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. And Menachem, this will be up. We'll give you a listen to the replay, send it around to the people you think that could benefit for it. Menachem, we'll see everybody next week, same time, same place, March 10th at 9:30 with Rav Dov Bear Pinson. Good night, everybody, and thank you for joining. And Rob, we love you.
I love you more.
Have a great night.
Thank you.